Welcome to Lesson 3. In this lesson, I'll talk about how a contract is broken or breached, the remedies that the innocent injured party can recover for a breach, and the defenses that the party accused of breaching the contract can argue in court as to why they should not be liable for a contract breach. A breach of contract is a failure to perform a contract promise or duty when its performance is due. Not every breach, however, creates liability. In order for a breach to create liability, it must be a material breach, and that depends on these factors, the first two of which focus on the injured party, and the last three focus on the breaching party. First, the extent to which the injured party will be deprived of their reasonably expected benefit. Second, the extent to which they can be adequately compensated for their deprived benefit in court. The other three factors are the extent to which the breaching party will suffer a disproportionate loss from the breach if they're found liable, the likelihood that the breaching party will later be able to complete its performance even though it's currently in breach, and lastly, compliance, if any, by the breaching party with commercial contract standards of good faith and fair dealing. Once you've determined that there's a material breach, you have to determine whether it's a total breach or partial breach to see what kind of remedy you might receive. And besides satisfying the material breach factors to become a total breach, that depends on these factors, A and B, the extent that the injured party reasonably believes that delay in terminating its own contract duties might prevent it from making reasonable substitute arrangements, or B, the extent that the breached contract provided for performance by the breaching party to have been done promptly, and the importance of this timing under the actual breach circumstances. If a material breach is not a total breach, it's only a partial breach, and that has an important effect on the remedies the injured party can recover. First of all, if there's no material breach at all, there's no remedy for the injured party. If there's only a partial breach, the court will award the injured party only money damages equal to the difference between the value of the breached duty if it were fully performed and its value as it was actually partially or substantially performed. Also, if there's a total breach, by contrast, the non-breaching injured party's unperformed contract duties are completely discharged, and they may recover total breach remedies described on the next page. There are three types of money damages total breach remedies, and these are the normal types of damages an injured party can recover. First of all, expectation or benefit of the bargain, money damages. This is what the injured party expected to get by the other party's performance of their promise and their own promise. Sometimes it's difficult to prove what you would have recovered if both parties' promises had been fully performed, so an injured party will instead claim reliance money damages, which are generally the costs that they incurred to fulfill their own promises and that were caused by the other party not fulfilling their own. Then, if A or B is not available, or if C would provide a higher value, the injured party can choose whichever A, B, or C provides a higher amount of money damages. The injured party can get restored to them through the restitution remedy, the value provided by them to the breaching party. Now, in addition to A, B, and C, the injured party can also recover what's called incidental damages, which are usually minor out-of-pocket expenses, and consequential damages, which can be a substantial amount of money. They must have been foreseeable by the breaching party, that they could be caused by the breach, and they must be directly related to the breach. Now, besides the damages that an injured party can recover, they must subtract from those damages any cost or loss actually avoided by them not having to perform their duties, or that could have been avoided by them without any undue risk or burden once they learned of the breach. All money damages must be proved with reasonable certainty, but not absolute certainty. Now, these money damages are the usual damages in U.S. courts. However, if they would not adequately compensate the injured party can get a court order to compel the breaching party to perform what they promised. This is called specific performance. It is available only when money damages are inadequate, when contract terms are clear enough to be enforced by a court order, and when the contract is not for personal services, because in the United States, the U.S. Constitution prohibits compelling an individual to perform personal services. Here are some examples of the categories of material, partial, and total breach. Here is a business that A contracts to sell to B. The sale price and the value at the time the contract is made are both $1 million. Let's say that B is supposed to pay in installments, but B makes the first installment and then doesn't pay anymore, and so B pays only $500,000. Here's another important factor. During the time that A is waiting to be paid by B, the value of the business declines to $500,000. So we can speculate that B didn't want to pay more than the new value, the lower value of the business, but of course B promised to pay twice as much, $1 million. In these circumstances, A looks like they have a good argument for a total breach. They're not getting what they bargained for. If they wait for B to pay them the rest of what they promised to pay, they might not get anything from B, and they might not be able to get anything for their business at all if it keeps declining in value. So unless B has a better reason for not paying than that they just don't want to pay anymore, it looks like A could make an argument for a total breach remedy, which would be what? Well, we said the typical remedy was the benefit of the bargain, so they made a bargain for $1 million, they got $500,000, and they would argue that they're entitled to another $500,000 from the court in money damages. Let's look at another contract breach example. Here is an expensive house that an owner contracts with a builder to build, and as part of the many details of the house, one of the contract requirements, duties of the builder, is to put in pipes made by Acme. Now the builder does everything they promised to do in building this house, except that instead of putting in pipes made by Acme, they put in pipes made by Zenith? Well, the first question we have to ask is this a material breach at all? And we would judge that by determining whether there is a difference in value between pipes made by Acme and pipes made by Zenith. If the difference in value is 0, then I think most courts would say there's no material breach. However, if the difference in value between a house with pipes made by Acme and pipes made by Zenith is 1% of the value of the house, then we have to ask, is this difference in value a total breach or a partial breach? If it's a total breach, remember that the innocent party, the owner, is discharged of all of their own contract promises. If this would mean that they don't have to pay the builder anything, it's unlikely that a 1% difference in value would be called a total breach. So for 1% in value difference, it's much more likely to be considered by a court a partial breach for which the owner gets as money damages the amount of that difference in value, 1% times the house price. These are some of the main contract defenses that a party accused of breaching a contract can raise as a defense to liability. In my book, I talk a lot about contracts not to compete that are in employment contracts and unconscionability defenses to consumer contracts. So all of these defenses are described in my book. These are the chapters in my book that relate to what's here in Lesson 3. Thank you.